Have you ever stared at the night sky and felt, for a fleeting second, that it was staring back? Since the dawn of time, humanity has tried to pierce the veil of tomorrow, to glimpse what lies beyond uncertainty. From oracles of Delphi to algorithms predicting stock markets, our longing to know the future has never faded. Perhaps that's because beneath our rational skin lies an ancient fear, the fear of not knowing. Today, science stands on the edge of mystery. We can map galaxies billions of light years away, yet we still cannot predict the fate of a single human heart. The boundary between the mystical and the measurable grows thinner each year. Physics whispers of invisible energy fields, while psychology speaks of intuition, déjà vu, and dreams that foretell. Are these coincidences of the mind, or echoes of a deeper design? Every era seeks its prophets. Priests once read the stars. Today, we read data. But the question remains the same. Is the future written, or are we writing it every second with our choices, thoughts, and desires? This is where our journey begins, between reason and reverence, where science meets the sacred. Every belief in prophecy begins with a single emotion: uncertainty. Human beings crave stability, even when surrounded by chaos. Psychologists call this the illusion of control, our tendency to believe that if we understand the patterns, we can tame the unknown. A 2016 study from Princeton showed that when people feel powerless, they start seeing meaning in randomness, shapes in clouds, fate in coincidence, signs in silence. In that sense, astrology, numerology, even tarot, are less about prediction and more about peace. They give structure to the unstructured, rhythm to randomness. The stars, the cards, the numbers. They whisper, "You're not lost. There's a reason for this." And sometimes that whisper alone can steady a trembling mind. But there's a paradox. The more we try to control the future, the more anxious we become about losing it. The need for certainty is both our shield and our shackle. Still, who can blame us? To be human is to stand in the dark and search for light, even if that light flickers from a candle called faith. Next, we travel back in time, to the civilizations where this search first began. Long before telescopes and laboratories, humanity looked upward, not for science, but for meaning. In ancient Egypt, the stars guided kings through death. In India, they mapped the cosmic rhythm of karma. In China, emperors ruled by the mandate of heaven, believing the sky itself approved or condemned their reign. The celestial and the political were inseparable, a divine choreography between heaven and earth. Back then, there was no division between mystic and scholar, priest and scientist. Alchemists searched for gold, but found chemistry. Philosophers traced the stars and stumbled upon astronomy. What we now call science was once the language of the sacred. Every experiment was a prayer, every calculation, an act of faith. When the Enlightenment came, the sacred veil was torn away. The mystical was banished to the shadows, and what remained became rational. Yet even in our age of technology, the echo of that ancient wonder lingers. Because while we may have changed our tools, our longing remains the same, to find order in the chaos of existence. And in that longing, the hidden sciences were born. The word occult comes from the Latin occultus, meaning hidden, veiled, or beyond ordinary sight. It referred not to darkness, but to depth, to knowledge too subtle for the naked eye. In medieval Europe, scholars, mystics, and monks guarded their discoveries in secret codes, believing that wisdom, if revealed too soon, could destroy those unprepared to receive it. Secrecy was protection, not manipulation, but secrecy breeds suspicion. As religion tightened its control over truth, those who studied the stars or elements became heretics. Books were burned, symbols banned. And yet, the hidden sciences endured, passed through whispers, manuscripts, and symbols carved in stone. Because the human mind, once it tastes mystery, cannot forget it. Ironically, today's scientists work with the same invisible forces that once frightened the church: gravity, magnetism, radiation. We name them differently, but they're still unseen. Perhaps occult was never banished. It simply evolved, reborn in the laboratories of modern physics and psychology, wearing the robe of reason instead of ritual. Nowhere is this more evident than in the oldest of mystical languages, the stars themselves. To the ancients, the heavens were not cold space, but a living script, a divine manuscript written in light. When Sumerians first mapped the constellations, they believed they were charting the mind of God. In Egypt, the movements of Sirius marked the Nile's flood, the pulse of life itself. The Greeks refined it, turning stargazing into philosophy. And later, the great astronomers, Kepler, Galileo, read those same stars not for magic, but for mathematics. Astrology was never just prediction. It was poetry, a dialogue between human emotion and cosmic rhythm. Even now, when science calls it unprovable, millions read their horoscopes not for accuracy, but for affirmation. Because sometimes the stars say what we cannot, that we are part of something vast, synchronized, and mysterious. Yet the skeptic's voice persists. The universe, they argue, doesn't bend for birthdays. But maybe that's not the point. Astrology doesn't claim to control life. It teaches us to listen, to cycles, to change, to the quiet symmetry between sky and soul. Still, where belief blooms, doubt always follows. Why do so many of us still find comfort in the stars, even when science dismisses their power? Psychology offers an answer. The Barnum effect, our tendency to accept vague universal statements as uniquely personal, explains why a horoscope can feel eerily accurate. You value independence, but crave connection. You hide your emotions, but feel deeply. These phrases could describe almost anyone, yet we cling to them as private truths. Then there's confirmation bias, the quiet trick of the mind that remembers what fits our beliefs and forgets what doesn't. When a horoscope predicts misfortune, every spilled coffee becomes evidence of destiny. When it promises love, every smile feels like a sign. But dismissing astrology entirely misses the deeper truth. We don't look to the stars for facts. We look for meaning. In an age ruled by data, the constellations still remind us that mystery has its place, that the heart seeks pattern where logic finds none. And if the stars are the poetry of the sky, then numbers are its music. Before equations filled chalkboards, numbers were seen as sacred symbols, each carrying vibration, essence, and truth. In ancient Greece, Pythagoras believed that mathematics was not merely a tool, but the divine language of the cosmos. All is number, he said, and in that sentence, the birth of numerology began. To him, harmony, music, and even the human soul resonated with numerical rhythm. Centuries later, St. Augustine echoed the same sentiment. Numbers are the universal language given by God to confirm truth. For mystics, every digit was a doorway to the invisible, a way to measure not distance or time, but destiny. Today, this ancient belief still lingers in modern psychology and science. We track steps, heartbeats, and algorithms, translating life into digits once again. Numbers have become our new form of faith, guiding not through prophecy, but probability. And perhaps that's why numerology, however mystical it seems, still speaks to us. It transforms chaos into structure, turning the unpredictable into something we can hold, even if just for a moment. But what happens when those numbers claim to reveal who we are? In numerology, every human life is distilled into a single vibration, the life path number. It's simple arithmetic, cloaked in mystery. Add the digits of your birth date until only one remains. A 1, they say, is a leader. A 2, a diplomat. A 5, a restless spirit. For believers, these numbers are mirrors reflecting the soul's blueprint. Critics, of course, scoff. How can millions born on the same day share the same destiny? Yet the fascination endures, not because it's scientifically sound, but because it feels intimate. Numbers speak with the precision words lack. They whisper certainty in an uncertain world. Psychologically, this may reveal something deeper: our need for identity. In a life of endless choices, a number promises simplicity, a symbol that says, "This is who you are." Whether fact or fable, it offers an anchor in the ocean of possibility. But the most poetic of all these hidden sciences is not found in logic or math. It's drawn, card by card, from the human subconscious. In the flicker of candlelight, a hand turns over a card, the Fool, stepping into the unknown. Another, Death, signaling transformation, not demise. The tarot is not a game of chance, but a theater of symbols, each card a fragment of the human condition. Its origins trace back to 14th century Europe, when mystics transformed playing cards into instruments of reflection. To Jungian psychology, the tarot mirrors the collective unconscious, archetypes that live in every mind, regardless of culture or time. The Empress, the Hermit, the Lovers. They are not strangers. They are us, dramatized in image and myth. Through these cards, people project their fears, hopes, and secret desires. Tarot endures because it transforms chaos into narrative. Each reading becomes a story about choice, consequence, and change. It doesn't predict. It reveals what the heart already knows, but the mind refuses to hear. And that revelation leads to a deeper truth. Tarot was never about the future. It has always been about seeing the present more clearly. The power of the tarot lies not in prophecy, but in reflection. When we draw a card, we're not glimpsing fate. We're glimpsing ourselves. The symbols act as mirrors, projecting fragments of our subconscious back to us. Psychologists might call it projection. Mystics call it divine dialogue. Either way, the message is the same. Truth emerges when we dare to look inward. Modern tarot readers rarely claim supernatural power. Instead, they function more like therapists or storytellers, guiding people through patterns of emotion and thought. A question reading explores a single struggle: love, fear, purpose. An open reading unveils the broader arc of one's life. In both, the magic lies not in the cards, but in the courage to interpret them honestly. Even in an era of science, this ancient art endures. Because while logic explains, the tarot listens. It reminds us that uncertainty isn't an enemy. It's an invitation to self-understanding. But where there is faith, there is also deception. And in the modern age, that deception wears a commercial smile. Mysticism, once whispered in temples, now thrives on screens and storefronts. What was sacred has become a market. Horoscope apps count millions of downloads. Online psychics sell reassurance by the minute. In South Korea, fortune-telling cafes fill each New Year's Eve. In Europe, astrology finds new life through social media aesthetics: sleek, comforting, algorithmic. The unseen has become a billion-dollar comfort industry. But where belief becomes business, manipulation follows. Charlatans exploit fear, selling certainty to the vulnerable. They claim to heal hearts, lift curses, erase grief for a price. And yet, behind the deception lies a genuine human ache, the desire to be seen, to be told that our suffering has meaning. The challenge, then, is not to banish belief, but to discern it. Faith is not foolishness when paired with reflection. It becomes wisdom. The true purpose of the occult was never control. It was contemplation. Still, even science, our modern faith, rests on invisible foundations. What if both mystics and scientists chase the same ghost? Look closely, and you'll find that modern science, too, is built on mysteries we cannot touch. We speak of gravity, yet no one has ever seen it. We trust in magnetic fields, dark matter, quantum entanglement, invisible realities shaping everything we know. Even psychology, that most human of sciences, measures thoughts we cannot see, emotions we cannot weigh. Isn't that, in essence, a kind of modern mysticism? A faith in forces beyond the senses. The language has changed, but the yearning remains, to understand what hides beneath the surface of existence. In quantum physics, particles behave as if guided by unseen intention. In neuroscience, the human mind generates dreams that border on prophecy. Perhaps science and the occult are not opposites, but reflections of the same wonder. Two lenses gazing into the same abyss. When we strip away the robes and the lab coats, what's left is curiosity, the oldest religion of all. And to understand how deeply this curiosity binds cultures, we must look at the world beyond borders. Across continents, mysticism adapts, yet endures, shifting shapes like light through stained glass. In India, palm readers trace destiny in the folds of skin. In Japan, omikuji fortunes flutter in temple courtyards. In France, alchemy once danced between philosophy and art. And in Korea, fortune apps blend ancient divination with modern algorithms. Everywhere, the desire to decode fate weaves through daily life, not as superstition, but as shared poetry. Globalization hasn't erased these rituals, it's amplified them. What was once spoken in whispers now trends online, translated into every language. We may not kneel before temples, but we still check lucky days before signing contracts or confessing love. Tradition lives on in subtler forms, dressed in memes, data, and smartphone screens. These cultural echoes remind us that mysticism is less about prediction than connection. Between people, between time, between the visible and the unseen. It's proof that no matter how rational we become, we still ache to belong to something greater than ourselves. But faith, when exploited, can become a prison. And that's where the moral line begins to blur. There is a fine thread between belief and manipulation, and history has seen it snap many times. When faith turns into fear, prophets become predators. From cult leaders to self-proclaimed gurus, countless lives have been lost chasing a promise of certainty. Yet, to condemn all belief would be to misunderstand its power. Faith, at its best, gives people agency, not submission. Sociologists note that in uncertain times, belief systems surge. Economic collapse, war, pandemics. Each crisis revives the hunger for meaning. People do not turn to the occult because they are naive, but because they are human. They want hope structured into something tangible. But true freedom begins when belief becomes choice, not dependence. The mystic and the scientist share one duty, to question their own truths. That skepticism is not betrayal, it is evolution. For only through doubt does faith become authentic. And so, we arrive at the heart of the paradox. Perhaps the future is not meant to be known, but to be met, courageously, moment by moment. What if the ability to foresee the future were not a gift, but a curse? Philosophers like Kierkegaard and Camus believed that life's beauty lies in its uncertainty. That meaning is born not from knowing, but from choosing in the dark. If every step were mapped, courage would lose its purpose, and love would lose its risk. To live fully, we must accept not knowing as the purest form of wisdom. In our quest to predict, we often forget to experience. We chase patterns, forecasts, horoscopes, anything to dull the ache of doubt. But in doing so, we trade wonder for security. The unknown, however frightening, is also fertile ground. It is where art is created, where revolutions begin, where faith renews itself. Perhaps destiny is not a line we follow, but a story we write. One word, one act, one heartbeat at a time. The mystery does not imprison us. It invites us to co-create with it. And when science and mysticism meet at that threshold, something extraordinary happens. They start to speak the same language. When Isaac Newton studied light, he saw both miracle and mechanism. When Einstein spoke of relativity, he described time as elastic, a concept once reserved for poets. The further science advances, the more it resembles philosophy, a search not only for answers, but for meaning. In that sense, scientists and mystics are kin, both reaching toward the infinite with trembling hands. The telescope and the tarot card, though worlds apart, share a common purpose: to understand our place in the cosmos. One measures, the other imagines. Yet both remind us that we are small participants in a grand, interconnected design. Perhaps the only real difference lies in language, data for one, metaphor for the other. As physicist Niels Bohr once said, "When it comes to atoms, language can be used only as poetry. Even the most rational minds resort to mystery when they meet the limits of reason." And maybe that is where truth truly lives, not in certainty, but in wonder. From that wonder, the deepest lessons quietly emerge. What, then, do all these hidden sciences teach us? Not about the universe, but about ourselves? They reveal our most ancient instinct, to seek meaning in the unseeable. Every horoscope, every drawn card, every calculated number is a reflection of that yearning. We look outward to understand inward, turning mystery into mirror. Perhaps the lesson is humility. The stars remind us that we are small. The equations remind us that we are capable. Between those two truths lies balance, the essence of wisdom. The occult, when stripped of superstition, becomes a philosophy of attention. To see what hides in plain sight, to question, to wonder. In the end, belief and skepticism are not enemies. They are partners in the same dance, one reaching for faith, the other grounding it. What matters is not which side you stand on, but how open you remain to awe. Because from that awe, something new begins to form. Not destiny, but creation. Maybe the greatest illusion of all is that the future already exists, waiting to be unveiled. In truth, the future is not found. It's forged. Every choice, every thought, every quiet act of courage shapes the world ahead of us. The mystics call it manifestation. The scientists call it cause and effect. Both speak of the same truth. We are participants, not spectators, in the unfolding of time. When we gaze at the stars or shuffle the cards, we are not asking what will happen. We are really asking, who will I be when it does? The answer, though unseen, is written not in heaven, but in habit, in compassion, in persistence. So perhaps prediction was never the goal. The power has always been creative, not prophetic, a reminder that the most divine act available to humanity is to imagine something better and then bring it into being. And to create that future, we must first understand the mystery that lives not above us, but within us. Beneath all the rituals and symbols, the true frontier of the occult is not cosmic. It is human. Every myth about destiny is a metaphor for self-discovery. The stars we read are reflections of our desires. The cards we draw are echoes of our fears. The real secret has never been about predicting the universe, but about learning to listen to the one that exists inside us. Psychology now calls this process individuation, the integration of shadow and self, the reconciliation between what we show and what we hide. Ancient mystics intuited this long before Jung gave it a name. Meditation, alchemy, and prayer. All were languages for the same quest, to turn confusion into clarity, ego into essence. When we understand that, the divide between mystic and scientist dissolves. Both are explorers of the unseen, both guided by wonder. The hidden power is not in stars, numbers, or cards. It is in awareness itself. And as we reach the end of this journey, one truth quietly remains. What we call magic may simply be our untapped potential, waiting to awaken. Perhaps the question was never whether we can predict the future, but whether we are willing to face it, with curiosity, not fear. The occult, stripped of its myths, reveals a simple human truth. We are creatures forever reaching for meaning in the dark. The stars, the cards, the numbers, they were never the answers. They were invitations to wonder, to question, to see beyond the surface of things. Science will continue to measure the universe, and faith will continue to dream of it. Between the two lies the bridge of awe, that quiet gasp when we realize how vast existence truly is and how small, yet miraculous, our lives are within it. So as you finish this journey, look up once more. The sky is no longer a map of fate, but a mirror of possibility. Perhaps the future isn't written in the stars. Perhaps it's written in us. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep looking up.